judge and ask what are in my cubes. Okay. Alrighty. Let's get this together. Just check it out on here. Make sure the mods be knowing. One sec. We're talking about the full moon / lunar eclipse in Pisces today. It is on September 7th and 15 degrees and 24 minutes of Pisces, angling the fixed star known as Achernar. Achernar is the end of the river in the Eridanus constellation. And it is quite a show in terms of what's going on. It's quite a show in terms of like karmic retribution and things of that nature. But let's get some of the mods in. Let's get warmed up, and then we will talk about it. Alrighty. Oh, hey, Beans. Thanks for pulling up. Yeah. 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 Oh yeah, we got some interesting stuff to talk about here. I gotta post one of them tickety talks after the fact, and then we'll get warmed up. But yeah, how's it going with you? What you got going on? I got whatchamacallit? Oh, hi, Julie. While we wait for everyone to show up, I can I'm gonna show you guys one of the apps that I'm working on, because it's with Uranus retrograde, it's like old ideas are coming back, and like the original idea that I got, like, you know, like funded and like a corporate side of things, that like fell through for a load of different reasons. I will essentially just show you guys that, because I found a way to make it and I want to make it happen. So here, let's check this out. Okay, so if any of you guys remember the original SoularSystems.org, don't mind this is still a work in progress, and I know the body looks fucking stupid. But yeah, but basically I wanted to make this app that is a copy of the solar map. It'll look like this eventually, where I have like a nice like little wireframe body where you can like see what's going on and all that stuff, but it has like all the houses. It'll have all the planets. You can toggle off like your chart, the external sky, inner planets, social planets, outer planets, nodal points, toggle all that off, learn about it. And then the interesting thing that people have been asking about is this, which is being able to kind of like basically like toggle the dates and see like how the planets like move in and out of your body, you know? So you'll see them like show up a little bit right here. Let's see if I can find a date where they show up and I can pick on them. But yeah, but basically like they'll be picking up here, and then you'll have like an active transit section. Let me try to figure this. Yeah, they're like popping up, but I can't get them to stay. Either way, it's a work in progress. But yeah, it'll pretty much look like this, and then you'll be able to see your own natal chart once you make your account, and then you know, you can like learn about it and like download little reports and whatnot, and then go check out my website and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll pretty much look like that. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on in that regard. Let me go back to my notes. But yeah, it's a little bit cool. I found a way to make that happen, so I'm going to keep pushing for that. It might not be out for like another month or so, but you know, we out here trying. But yeah, let's get to that. And then oh yeah, let me plug The Alchemist. Everybody new, like the live. And let me know what you want to see in like an astrology app. Basically how I define this is it's like a combination of CoStar and the solar map. I'm going to call it the solar map app. Play on words, you feel me? But yeah, it's one of the little side projects. Yeah, sorry, Beans. I forgot that's a thing for you. But thank you. But yeah, man's out here making shit happen. Anyways, let me get to my notes. And then we will get started on the... Yeah. Everybody knew like the live for your boy. Is this everything I wanted to get started? I think it is. Yeah. Let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb because I got a lot of insurance people calling me. Okay, cool. Yeah. That's what's going on. But, yeah, anyways. So, essentially what we have going on is the... Whatchamacallit? We have the full moon as well as an eclipse in Pisces. It's happening on September 7th and it's peaking at 2:12 p.m. Eastern time. And it is aligned with the fixed star known as Achernar, which is essentially, it's like the end of the river of the Eridanus constellation. And once I get to that, like the Eridanus constellation is a whole web of conversational topics and just things that are like, oh my god, damn, like that's, you know, like, hey man, that's like the Eridanus constellation has a lot going on with it other than it just being a celestial river in the sky. You feel what I'm saying? So with that being said, it's karmic closure, it's a lot of emotional release, it's a lot of faith in higher alignment. But at the end of the day, eclipses are cosmic resets, right? They mark endings. They also prepare you for beginnings, and you know, you can like move ahead, make, you know, things happen along with that. And the thing about it is we're kind of getting into this state of old ideas and chaos and being in this space of like delayed seed cycle. This is coming from staggered new moons and full moons. Basically staggered moons are when they're on the cusp. I know a lot of people have like hot takes of where they don't believe in cusps, but how I define cusps is what are you talking about? I was talking about a completely different fixed star. That's one of the 4 royal fixed stars. But yeah. So pretty much what's the word? What was I saying? But yeah, so we have staggered new and full moons, which are creating like extended releases over 2025 and 26. But tonight we're basically exploring the okay. But basically tonight we're going to be exploring the specific, you know, lunar eclipse that we have going on. But before that, I think I got distracted by what was it? Whatchamacallit? Oh, you're on your shorts account, that's why. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, we're all good so far. If we got something weird, I can just hop into my live manager and handle it. But basically what we have going on with like cusps is, I like to define cusps the same way that people define borders, of where it's like a definitive nice, where it's like why are you just saying royal fixed stars? Like, could you be more specific? Because you're just like spouting off just saying random formal fixed stars, and I'm just like, why are you doing that? But anyways, essentially like technically Fomalhaut is in Pisces. It's in like 3 or 4 degrees of Pisces, but that's not what we're talking about. But basically, like I said, cusp are kind of like borders of where it's just like you're definitively one nationality or the other. And so it's like you're definitively like one nationality or the other. But when it comes to borders are similar to energy, right? So it's just like culturally there's a lot of influence of both, right? So like that's how I define cusps. But when you have that like, you know, he said, she said type of nationality thing going on with these like staggered lunations, that's kind of like an opportunity for you to basically be like you know, it kind of gives you like a confusing energy of like how you planted the seed. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, anyways, let's get into the eclipse. So in terms of what we have going on here, we have it flowing through the full moon being in Pisces, and then we have it also being in eclipse, and then we also have Pisces dissolving certain things, and then we have like certain whatchamacallit, we have a certain like timing that we have going on with it. I don't really care about Vedic that much. I think it's I like Vedic for its charts, but I don't like Vedic for its underlying calculations, so I don't do it. But anyways, so the full moon in Pisces, like it's a lot of like the generic things that people like about Pisces, which it's intuition, compassion, imagination. But what people don't like about Pisces is a lot of the surrender, right? So they don't like, no one likes to talk about how Pisces is in order to be directly tapped into the collective of just like what is and what's going on, you have to essentially surrender to all of your like worldly possessions, right? So it's like some real Buddha type stuff. It's some real, like Aang and Avatar, like mastering all the chakras and being like, I can't let go of Katara. It's kind of like that, of where it's like, that's the aspect of Pisces that people don't like in terms of like, when they're incarnated into a physical body and they want all these spiritual superpowers, they don't necessarily, it's like they don't be out here like, really letting go and being at peace to the degree that they want to, right? And this is when we eventually talk about the eclipse aspect of things and show how the eclipse is coming to a lot of endings, karmic closures, and emotional culminations, right? And we'll get into that once we start talking about the external planets and whatnot. So basically, it's kind of like the eclipse is forcing this, what some call negative aspect of Pisces, on you and its natives in some way, shape, or form. So it's kind of like people aren't really like, people aren't really, you're gonna have to let go of some things that you probably don't want to, which is why you have it and why it's gonna be so painful. Like it's kind of like that type of thing. So when it comes to the Piscean aspect of the eclipse, what the eclipse is focusing on is dissolving, right? So it's talking about emotional and spiritual baggage that is needing to be released. So it's an emotional connection to, like, once again, it really depends on the house you guys have Pisces in, so drop the house you have Pisces in. And for the record, for everybody watching, I do my own hybrid version of Western astrology, and like technically you could call it either like galactic or sidereal astrology, but it's like sidereal is focused on the 12 zodiacal constellations, and it's not like all 88. So like I do 88, which is technically galactic astrology. But even galactic I don't fully agree with, so I kind of created my own hybrid version of Western and galactic. But with that being said, essentially, like with Pisces dissolving a lot of the emotional and spiritual baggage, the two alignments that are kind of working with that are the North Node as well as Saturn retrograde in Pisces, right? So with the North Node and Saturn retrograde in Pisces, it's an opportunity for people to be in a space of, creativity, being in a space of letting things go, but also releasing old emotional boundaries and baggages that you haven't exactly articulated or understood, and it's been a very subtle emotional expectation, and then realizing that you have to release that in some way, shape, or form, which is Saturn retrograde in Pisces, moving on to get after it, beans. It's going to be a part of your reading. But essentially moving up and moving on towards the energy of the North Node, which is, I have an Aries moon, thank you, which is essentially being, I have a lot of Martian in me. Martian and Plutonian, a lot of that, with a flair of Gemini to keep things interesting. But so it's like Pisces. So it's like Saturn retrograde and the eclipse, that's basically going, hey man, you have these old vibes, these old emotional connections, these old emotional expressions to be basically attached at the hip to some, you know, for lack of a better term, bullshit that like people don't necessarily want you to be in, right? So it's like, yeah, man, like you're feeling this, you want to be accepting, you want to be like cognizant of like how people feel. But you know, it's like too many people nowadays are so predicated on the emotions of others for how they want to interact and what. So it's kind of like people are basically getting that cut off in some way, shape, or form. And like, don't get me wrong, like, you know, the universe doesn't care. It's like to each their own, do your thing, whatever, bruh. But in this case, you know, it may be painful to some people because people don't necessarily want to release that way. People don't necessarily want to, you know, open up and show themselves a certain thing, right? So essentially what's going on with that is the eclipse is coming and being like, hey, man, if this affects your alignment in any way, shape, or form, you know, because the North Node wants you to move forward. The North Node wants you to express yourself. The North Node wants you to be in alignment and truly be, you know, feeling that Piscean lucky energy of where it's just like, as long as you chase some type of spiritual direction, you have an opportunity to, you know, you have an opportunity to be in a certain vibration, to be in a certain experience, to be in a certain space that is open to what the universe has for you, you know? So it's like, it's cool, like it's doing its thing, but it's just like, hey, you know, like things are a bit crazy right now. Let's work on that, right? And then whatchamacallit, I do not. So it's kind of like it like if you were to say if you were to like define this in some way, it would be like, this is not just about release. It's about trusting the endings are you know, it's like trusting that endings are openings in some way. And it's like the river flows into the ocean, and what dissolves now creates space for something that is more aligned to arrive, right? So it's basically like a long way of saying, you know, experientially, like, hey, man, you trusted what you were doing. It worked for a time. Now you got to let go. But it's Pisces, so it's subconscious and unconscious. And whatever you have being cut off in any way, shape, or form is not necessarily good for you anymore. So it's kind of like a subconscious reckoning of like, hey, let it go. Hey, good for you, you know? Yeah, a lot of, one thing that you'll notice is, oh, damn, I really wasn't even paying attention. So yeah, what you got going on with all those vibes is like, sorry, what I was gonna say is a lot of high vibrational people often have the vibes of, you know, basically anything and everything felt like a little bit before when it actually happens, just because your spirit is like vibrating in a higher space, right? So if you want to essentially like go back on my live where I was talking about like dimensions and like things like that, they are not. So if you're wondering about like, yeah, so nice. My big three are, I'm a Gemini Sun, Aries Moon, and Scorpio Rising with Pluto in the first house for extra flair. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, anyways, what I was saying is like higher vibrational people feel the alignments like much sooner because they're oscillating in a space, right? And like I did a whole live and I have numerous videos. I have a whole series on it where I talk about like dimensions and the vessel that you incarnate in certain dimensions and how it applies. To clarify, I don't believe in any of that like extra dimension crap. So if you come at me saying like the 12th or like the 13th dimension, like I will verbally assault you for being stupid. And whatchamacallit, if I could shake you by the shoulders physically, I would too. But basically like I'm kind of like a purist with that in terms of like just based on how numerology works and how it like simplifies and breaks down. So it's kind of like it's kind of like just, you know, don't be too obsessed with any dimension and don't be making up dimensions just for funsies because they're variations of just what already is, you know, and you're basically getting trapped into something, right? So it's basically, you know, aggression for your higher good, which is usually how I'm coming, and people often misconstrue that because people nowadays don't understand the difference between, you know, criticism and disrespect. you know. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely true. For me personally, I don't know, I have like my Gemini-ness to kind of get around that, but it's you know, it's present. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the eclipse energy, you know? It's like the eclipse is working with both North Node in Pisces and Saturn retrograde in Pisces to basically shake up your unconscious emotional habits and, you know, attachments, I would say, in order for you to pursue an alignment that will move you forward, right? So it's like, this is why we have like delayed seeds, right? So when we have delayed seeds, it's often like a lot of people are going through some type of spiritual lesson or upshift, and it wants you to pause the manifestation hurdle because it knows that you're going on a growth journey, or like the planet in general is going through an upshift because people are like, you know, it's like the universe knows you're human, you're a dickhead, for lack of a better term. So basically, it's saying, hey, man, we're going to pause some manifestations because we know you're going through a growth journey. And the irony of the human condition is often you going through a growth journey to pursue some type of desire or manifestation will often not match up, right? And it's just like by the time you go through your journey, you're not going to want the thing that you said you wanted, and you're going to be like, meh, you know, and the universe kind of knows that about you. So it's going to be like, you know, we're going to put this on pause for a little bit while you get yourself together, and then we can keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like what's happening here with the start of eclipse season, essentially. So yeah. So if anybody has any questions about broader manifestation, whatchamacallit? Yeah. Well, no, it's whatchamacallit? Dang, it's crazy. Yeah, but so if you guys want like more information on moon manifestation, you can join my little group. I have my own app where I'm gonna be actually making a moon manifestation course in it. But I have my own little app where I have like courses in a community, and it's pretty cool. And right now I have a free trial going, so claim it for the time being because it's not gonna be there forever. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop over to the fixed star. You can join for that link right there. Claim your free trial. But oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think I sent you both a message saying like if you wanted a specific, since you guys are like more advanced, I structure things in that way of like the leveling up tier, to essentially like, you know, to like put people on pause of like more advanced shit that they shouldn't be doing, you know? But if you guys are more advanced, like I'm easily convinced in regards to that, just be like, hey, I want to check this out, and I'll just unlock it for you. But yeah, so that's pretty much that. I'm gonna be going on the tickety talks and being like, hey man, check it out. But anyways, let's get on to the fixed star of Achernar. Okay. What time is it? Achernar. Ashies, Ashilary, Achernar. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so for the record, this is the celestial river. Achernar is here. It's at the end of the river. Naturally, like, you know, it's kind of up for debate of where it ends and where it begins, but that's, you know, in reference to endings and beginnings. So with Achernar right here and it being at the end of the Eridanus constellation, the Eridanus constellation has a lot going on that people don't necessarily talk about. And this comes just to everything in that area where it's just like, you know, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and the kind of like violent royal streak that it has in there, which is due to, you know, it's essentially due to the stories that are in there. So it's like there's Cepheus, there's Andromeda. I'm trying to think of Andromeda's mom's name. What the hell is Andromeda's mom's name? I forget. It's gonna come to me. But yeah. Andromeda's like, you know, it's like Andromeda's selfish bitch of a mom is what caused all the bullshit in here. But and essentially, like, yeah, and Andromeda, like, I don't know. I know I don't like the energy of Andromeda, even though it's not her fault. But it's just like, I know someone who like named their kid Andromeda, and she goes by Andy, and essentially like that person like kind of lived the life of Andromeda, which is like depressing, you know? So it's just like, try to avoid that constellation if possible. Yes, Cassiopeia, thank you. Cassiopeia is a real bitch. But you know, like basically the story is like she was looking at herself in the mirror, and then she was like, I'm more beautiful than all the Nereids, and then it pissed off the sea monster Cetus. And then, you know, Cepheus had to make like hard decisions because, you know, his wife that he chose was being a real see you next Tuesday over some dumb shit, you know? And then next thing you know, the entire kingdom was at risk because, you know, basically like, I don't know. It's like we all talk about a male ego, but here we have a female ego destroying an entire celestial kingdom. So, you know, what's going on with you? So basically, like what happened with that story is Andromeda was essentially put up as an offering to Cetus because her mom was like, I'm more beautiful than these sea beings, and you know, here we are like having a whole celestial war and an offering of a constellation to a sea monster that all flows through the River Eridanus, right? So basically that's like the story of all the constellations in this space. And you know, long story short, sorry Andromeda had to be suffered, and you know, Cassiopeia is a real bitch. But basically with that being said, what's going on with this eclipse is, sorry, I got sidetracked by all the stories behind this constellation, but essentially what's going on is Achernar, or ACHENAR, I'm making up letters here, but ACHENAR, can I zoom in on here? Oh, I can. Sweet. There we go. So yeah, so ACHENAR is the end of the river right here. Whatchamacallit, like and basically like what it has going on is it's all about the karmic endings, the karmic beginnings, and all that stuff of just like, hey man, like this is what we got going on. These are the vibes we're experiencing. We can move up and move on, but we have to essentially, you know, get out of here. We have to get out of this flow in some way, shape, or form, right? So, I mean, that's like really pretty much it. Like, there's not like too much, there's not too much else going on with that. And essentially what's going on with that is like, it's essentially what house do you have Pisces in? And then it's also what vibes do you have going on? And then it's like, what does a karmic retribution or ending mean to you, right? And it's not really something you're going to be able to answer. It's not something that's going to be conscious in any way, shape, or form, because it's like, I don't know, it's like a very personal, like spiritual, subconscious thing that people aren't necessarily, you know, privy to in their conscious mind. So with that being said, it's like, okay, well, what do I do with that, right? How do I make this happen? How do I experience this? How do I amplify that? How do I understand it, right? And the real answer is like, you need to create space for yourself. So this is where salt bathing comes in heavy. Yes, you were here when I explained that. This is, I'm sorry. I just like, as an Aries moon, I hate repeating myself with a dying passion, and it's just like the short answer is yes. But with that being said, essentially what's going on is like we're talking about like karmic retributions and karmic endings and karmic recalibrations in some way, shape, or form. So with that being said, it's kind of like, if you want to think about it and you want to create space in some way, shape, or form, what you need to do is you should basically do what I do every Monday, which is I take a salt bath in the dark, and I essentially like cleanse a lot of the emotions, right? You can also do waterfall magic. You can like put your feet in a creek. Highly recommend putting your feet in a creek, because, you know, your feetsies are essentially your 12th house, which is what the original Pisces is correlated to. And essentially what's going on with that is like, that is where you symbolize having subconscious emotions, unconscious beliefs, unconscious energies, right? And when you put your feet in a creek or you do some type of water magic, that is where you cleanse that and you create space, right? Which is essentially the nice way of you preparing for the eclipse and not getting eclipsed, right? Because the things that I have to deal with on the eclipse, man, they are incredibly stupid. Typically, like, what I have to deal with on the eclipse is I deal with a lot of, I deal with, like, with astonishing consistency, especially, like, 3 years ago when it was a Libra eclipse. I deal with a lot of women that say the same exact thing in my readings where they go, like, where they say the same thing, where it's just like, you know, my husband provides for me emotionally, physically, and financially, but not spiritually. And it's just like, and like, I have to, like, contain myself and not be like, well, damn, bitch, what else did you see on Instagram that is making you think this? You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, oh my God, I see it every time, of where it's just this, like, thing they can't put their finger on, that they're not being, like, provided for in some way, shape, or form, and they just want to break up a happy home. And it happens every eclipse. To be fair, I don't fully know the spectrum of what's going on, but still, it's like, to hear the same exact thing for years on every side of the eclipse, to me, is baffling. You know? And I'm just like, these people, man. I'm just like, I don't know, I have to contain myself and not, like, snap and be like, do you hear yourself? You know, it's like, almost like, actually, no, I have recorded it and played it back before, and being like, what does this person seem like to you? And you're like, oh no, she's crazy. And I'm just like, yeah. You know? And it's just like, it's like, you don't need astrology to tell you that what you're doing is questionable. You know? And I have so many readings like that, and I'm just like, I gotta get out of here. But, damn. You been fighting with people? How so? Interesting. I don't know. From what I've seen from you, Celeste, you seem like a very caring person that will bend their boundaries at the benefit of someone else. So maybe that's something that the eclipse is poking at you in. Oh, I see. Well, good for you. Yeah, there's a lot of that, especially on TikTok. And then it's just like, you just got to remind them that, like, yo, you're, like, alone and your only friends are on TikTok. Your life sucks. You know? You just got to hit them where it hurts. You know, I love doing that. Yeah, you know, you got to do it. Hold their feet to the fire. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, anyways, I had some other things to say about Achernar. Yeah. So it's like, Achernar on itself has, like, a very Jupiterian influence to it. You know, it's the end of the river, right? So it's like basically the river opening up into the ocean, right? So it's just like, you've rode this stream long enough, but it's not opening you up to the realm of all possibilities. So the stream is gently saying, fuck off, via the eclipse, right? And the theme is a lot of, like, faith, moral integrity, philosophy, higher ideals, public recognition, and just, like, essentially, how would I put this? You know, it's like kicking the birdie out the nest. That's kind of what it is, from, like, a spiritual sense. So it's kind of like it's a completion, it's a transition, it's a karmic closure. It's essentially, it's reminding us that, like, life has carried us far, and the eclipse is the final bend in the river, and it's kind of like where we release a lot of the illusions and step into integrity, allowing ourselves to pursue a higher purpose, right? So it's just like, you've been riding this wave. It has taught you things that will inevitably work, but how you're directing it isn't exactly, like, look at it this way. It's like, you've had a goal, a dream, and a spiritual direction that has taken you on a journey to learn many things, but it's essentially like, how do I put this? I don't know. It's like, the skills you learn from the goal you pursued is not how they should be applied. That's kind of like what I'm getting, of where it's like, I don't know, the universe is, like, basically, like, giving you, like, a gentle backhand, of where it's just like, hey, idiot, are you really thinking so small with those goals? But it's doing it in a way of where it's just like breaking the emotional connection to the goal that you had. Make sense? Now let's hop into the old collective spiritual lens and see what type of ideas we be coming up with. Wow, I really went on a tangent. Homie's gonna make hella breakfast after this. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, sometimes I just like saying nothing. It really lets it sit in and it makes it look like I'm thinking when I'm not, because a lot of the time I practice not thinking at all because people have enough thoughts and I don't need to cloud up the stream with extra thoughts, you know? But yeah, so when it comes to collective and spiritual lenses, essentially the collective is just like dissolving illusions, escapism, spiritual bypassing. I feel like that's like a correlation, but not a causation. But thank you. You know what, Beans? I will rub it in. Men only, boys only club. No girls allowed. Let me. What's the thing from the Little Rascals? The He-Man's Woman Haters Club. Yep. I'll rub it in, Beans. I'm rubbing it in. Now I'm gonna remember that when I do the Leo reading, just to rub it in even more. But yeah, so there's like a lot of moral authority, integrity. I don't really have a specific idea of how this is gonna help the collective. I have hopes. I got dreams. I hope people stop being so pussy. I hope people don't misconstrue. I hope people don't misconstrue criticism for disrespect anymore. I hope people stop using the TikTok triad of Dr. Phil quotes. I hope people, I hope the bitchness goes down. Yeah, I don't know. I just think most people are little bitches, you know? And I have plenty of stories to prove that. And I have plenty of stories to prove of my not bitchness. So, I don't even know why I'm saying that, but, you know, it's a hope and a dream, you know? It's a hope and a dream. Just give me a dream, you know? Things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, there's potential. Yeah, Beans, but you go beyond, what's the word? Narcissism and projection. That's all TikTok has. That's all they got. That's all they got. Narcissism and projection. And they got variations of all of them, you know? But I don't think a lot of those people have dealt with actual mental illness, and they're just saying things to, you know? Yeah. I wish people on TikTok said more of that. I wish people taught boundaries, you know? But I also, the people I do see that teaching on TikTok are often like post-divorce women that specifically like got out of a relationship that was like from a high school sweetheart, and it's like they had a relationship where they were still discovering themselves and didn't know who they were, and also like let them walk all over them and now acting like they were the problem when they didn't, like, you know, set boundaries in the beginning. So it's just like, you know, who's at fault here? The answer's both, but, you know, it's like not nice to see the abuse nonetheless. But it's just like, I say all that to say, I don't want women of divorce at 40 teaching that specific concept, because I have never seen anyone talk about it without resentment and coming up with extra words on top of that, which is just like, hey, you know, it's like, maybe I'm just imagining the unhealed trauma that I see on your face, but maybe you want to handle that before you start talking all that stuff with subtle emotional pretext under it. Exactly, you know, but it's just like, you know, it's like a weird, it's hard to explain. It's like a weird egotistical blame game rather than a teachable moment, you know? And it's just like, don't get me wrong, you spent 20 years in that situation, but it's like at the same time, it's like, you know, people are listening to you and you're just crying on camera, allegedly saying you're healed. How does that make any sense? But with that being said, you know, the eclipse is a spiritual purge. It'll be emotional. It'll be intuitive. But it's meant to clear space for the seeds that we'll plant in, you know, months, maybe years ahead, right? So it's kind of like, oh, here we go again. Thanks, universe. We'll get there at some point. But yeah, but with that being said, I'm going to do the all signs reading. So everybody drop the house that you have Pisces in. If you don't know the house you have Pisces in, drop your rising sign and I'll figure it out for you. And if you don't know your rising sign, just put in your chart information in the chat and then Beans or someone else will help you in some way, shape, or form. But I'm going to go make more tea because I like the spice of ginger when I talk. I have returned with my hot leaf juice. Oh, yeah. See? When I do nothing, more people show up. Maybe I should do nothing more often. Yeah. Hot leaf juice. Anyways, Aries. So Aries is dealing with this in the 12th house. Whoa, 2 Leo risings. Yep. So Aries is dealing with this in the 12th house. It's the most subconscious out of all the signs in terms of what's going on. And basically what we have here is releasing old fears, subconscious baggage, and kind of them going on a hidden path that only they know, which is essentially like more surrendering control and trusting the divine timing. But what I've been saying about Aries is they've been wanting all the accolades of leadership, all of the enjoyment of leadership, and all of the opportunities of leadership without actually being an individual that leads, right? So it's like it's cool. It's an opportunity, but something will be changing in the back of their mind saying like, I'm an Aries without being an Aries. I'm a shell of an Aries. What the fuck is going on? You know, where it's just like, you know, where it's like, you're almost Aries, but I'm not fully Aries, and I'm not just like doing me so goddamn hard that people follow me. I'm doing things that people want to follow, but I'm not doing me. Like, what's happening here? How am I fucking this up? you know? So that's kind of like what Aries is going through right now, where they're just kind of riding the fart in the wind energy pretty hard and not necessarily being the individual that they claim to be. So as we move on from that predicament, Taurus. Yep, thank you. Oh yeah, Beans, I should have your as long as I don't get distracted by poking at my app, I should have your reading done today. Yeah. It's cool. If they want me to do an oracle card reading, I'll do it. If you want a custom oracle card reading, I'll get crazy with it. Man's getting crazy. Yeah, and then for the record, if anybody wants like what's the word? If you want a free guide that kind of gives you a framework of understanding astrology, just click that link right there and it'll have you. It will teach you all you need to know about what's already inside yourself. Dang, I really just got distracted. Let me rewrite this. Okay. So Taurus. Taurus is dealing with this in the 11th house. Basically, Taurus is just like losing connections, losing friends that they thought they had and thought they needed, when in reality they were just providing a foundation for the resources of everyone else to grow. And when they kind of cut that off or pulled back in some way, shape, or form, people ain't like that, and they moved up and moved on. So Taurus is having a new boundary in terms of the communities and, you know, networks dissolved for them to realign, right? So it's kind of like keeping their circle small and only keeping aligned souls in their orbit to maintain the foundation of their opportunities, you know? So yeah, that's what's going on with the old Tauresians. Does anybody have any questions about their specific... Oh yeah, we got Leo's coming up. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, Taurus, this is real simple for Taurus. It's just like, hey, man, you got homies, you got friends. Yeah, that's cool. But are they really your friends? Personally, I don't really trust anyone until I go through some type of hard situation and I see how they react, because everybody's so soft nowadays. They, like, you know, they're not gonna have your back. They're gonna run, hide, or what's the word? Or you know, curl up in the little fetal position and forget how to socialize, you know? So you can't be trusting everybody just like that. And I think people are, like, I don't know, this is a good lesson for Taurus, but it's like, the lesson in itself is just boundaries. Boundaries, recognizing who you are, who your friends are, and not just being so trusting of everyone right away just because they say things, right? People love a good talk, people love a good game, but you know, in this age of people growing up with the internet and growing up with Instagram and trying to look cool and trying to look like everything, you know, there's a whole lot of looking and there's a whole not lot of doing, and people are just soft, so you can't be trusting everybody. Now, Gemini has a pretty phenomenal opportunity. I really can't see anything wrong with this. It's just going to be pretty fire for Geminis. Gemini has a lot of career and public path shift. Old ambitions dissolve, and essentially they're going to be, you know, having their crown of truth be bestowed upon their head and truly understanding what they want to do. So it's kind of like letting integrity guide your next steps, like understanding your boundaries and recognizing that, like, you know, there should be a purpose behind your, how do I say, your cardinal path, right? Of where it's like Geminis essentially have a lot of opportunities. They create a lot of things, but it's not necessarily the, you know, dream or goal or gift that they may want to pursue. And they're going to want to pull back into themselves and keep doing the thing that Geminis always do, which is dissolving themselves in pursuit of knowledge, right? Dissolving themselves in pursuit of information, and kind of like, I don't know, it's like just talking to people and adapting themselves to different information sets gives them that like same high that it gives them that same high that like people get from like reels and YouTube shorts. It's kind of like where Gemini lives, of where it really loves opportunity, it loves creating things, it loves creative endeavors, yet it does not necessarily use a lot of the information that it learns for its highest good, right? So it's like that's kind of where Gemini is like, what do I want to do? What is my intention? How do I make this happen? And then they can, you know, create their own career after the fact. Now, when we move on to Cancer, feel free to stop me if you got questions. Cancer is dealing with this in the 9th house, right? Cancer is dealing with a lot of outgrown beliefs. Philosophies are falling away, and essentially they're dealing with an internal pilgrimage of where they needed to trust the new wisdom that's calling them forward, right? So it's like, what pursuit are you attached to? What philosophy really calls you? What philosophical energy cultivates that space of peace in a state of creation for you? What philosophical energy really pushes you to open yourself up to, I guess, new possibilities that aren't fearful? What philosophical endeavor creates a energy of boundaries, an energy of, you know, just pure excitement and optimism from a loving space, you know? So it's kind of like Cancer's in this weird transitional period of, it's like, yeah, they don't be feeling that, yeah, they don't be feeling this, yeah, they don't be resonating with old philosophies and old energies in that regard, but they do like to grow, they do like to shift cells, they do like to move in a space that is open and optimistic to just growing. They just want to feel safe doing it, right? So here's the opportunity to feel safe, Cancer. Just take that leap. Now, Leo, we're going to be going a lot longer for Leo because I like roasting the people in the chat, but yeah. Leo. So for Leo, Leo is dealing with the 8th house, so it's a deep karmic release in intimacy, shared resources, and essentially a rebirth for, you know, just attachment and authenticity in some way, shape, or form. So basically, I don't know, a lot of people, like the common thread for a lot of these reasons is like, yo, homie, you're just not doing you. Why are you fucking up? Right? Oh, thank you, Celeste. I most certainly will. So Leo's kind of dealing with this, like, I don't know, it's like they've been, like, straight up Leo, you've been tiptoeing. You've been dancing around. You've been not doing you because you want to maintain some type of energy. You want to maintain some type of connection. You want to maintain some type of belief that is honoring, I guess you could say, the reception that you want. And it's not necessarily like, how do I put this? Oh, thank you. I can definitely go hard. But it's basically like, I don't know, it's like you're doing little things to keep yourself in a box, right? So it's like, yeah, like I wouldn't call it people pleasing. I wouldn't call it you know, being a like a doormat, but I would definitely call it, you are, at least for some time, and like maybe it's like brushing off a little bit and like just being opportunistic. Beans, you're pushing it. Beans, I'm holding my tongue for what you said about the eclipse, man. I'm holding my tongue. Whatchamacallit? But like, I will not do that to you, Beans. But basically it's like Leos are kind of dealing with this energy of like, they're doing like, how do I put this? Whatchamacallit? It's like, yeah. They just haven't been wanting to connect like their deepest part of self because they're not around the right people, right? And it's sort of like they're shedding their old, like, kind of like, you know, let's be nice to the community, let's be nice to the people, let's be nice to the whatchamacallit, let's be nice to just like it's like they used to be people pleasing in some way, but now they've sort of shed that a little bit, and now they're kind of like really connecting with who they want and who they want, and essentially being in a space of where they aren't holding back. And now they're moving forward, but it's like they're still shaking off some of those like deep-seated like people-pleasing beliefs, because they literally like they lost their pride in some way. And I mean that in a lion sense, and I mean that in a emotional sense, right? So with that being said, it's a lot of release, a lot of attachment, a lot of like claiming authentic power and remembering like remembering their roar in some way, shape, or form, right? Because they spent a lot of time um, deep in just like spaces they shouldn't be, and they were trying to learn and adapt to a public that isn't necessarily like you're not supposed to adapt to the public. You're supposed to be you, and you're supposed to let people like follow your shine because you're a leader and you have your gift is to focus on things that you find are cool, right? But you haven't been doing that for a while. And now that you are coming back into that, it's kind of like a like, you know, you're releasing that like Saturn and Pisces haze that is I am trying to adapt to the public perception for this emotional gain back in myself, you know? So that's kind of like where Leos are at, of where it's just like they're getting back in the saddle, but it's like they don't realize how long they've been gone and what comes with that. What, Beans? But anyways, Virgo. I wouldn't do that. If you want to act like a retarded teenager, go for it. Don't do it. But anyways, Virgo. So Virgo is dealing with the seventh house, which is a lot of like relationships and contracts and, you know, shifting and closing and stuff like that. Virgo is really simple. Virgo is just like, you know, I've been roasting Virgo for the same reason I've been roasting Virgo for a long time, of where it's like, no one asked for your help. No one asked. Like, you are just being like Dwight in The Office, showing up with some New York bagels, expecting a favor in return. And it's like, yeah, but, you know, when it comes to reciprocity, someone has to initiate. And if you're the initiate, that doesn't necessarily apply the same social contract of reciprocation to what you're doing, right? So Virgo is basically finally getting around to realizing that after who knows how many decades. And essentially, like, yeah. Well, I don't know. You spent time on the same coast I spent time on, so that's just how it is. But essentially, Virgos are, yeah, bagels, you know? A good New York bagel. Where's my salmon lock? Where's my cream cheese? Where are my capers? I can't have an everything bagel without it being lightly toasted and having some capers post-toast. Treasury bonds. But essentially, Virgos are dealing with the energy of the most basic relationship boundaries possible, and I will, you know, do the classic spiritual business owner sales tactic and lie to you and tell you that something that is the most basic way to interact is a deeply spiritual thing, which maybe it is for Virgos because, you know, they're the equivalent of being on the spectrum when it comes to social contracts and understanding reciprocation. So it's kind of, you know, a little challenged in that social understanding area of how to vibe, of how to feel, of how to just do all those things, right? So essentially they're aligning with more integrity, and like the most basic thing that I can tell you is whatchamacallit? Like just, you know, take note if you need like a physical like routine thing to take note of. Be cognizant of the push and pull that is in relationships, right? Because more often than not, you're just pushing and people are eventually pulling because you're just offering so much service, so they sort of see you as being in a space of servitude, right? So pretty much what's going on with that is they are like, yeah, just like have basic boundaries in relation. I don't really know what to tell you other than that. Like, it's very simple. But for Libra risings, I believe, is that Annie or Celeste? Let me know, and I can tailor it to you. So they're dealing with the 6th house. Well, we'll get to that. I'm also a Scorpio rising. Thank you for saying your own name. But yeah, so basically what it is with 6th house, this is old routines, health patterns dissolving, and it's essentially creating a new devotion and building a rhythm of service and care to self rather than, you know, it's essentially building like service to self in a way that you would be giving to a lot of other people, but you're spending a lot of time with that with yourself, right? So essentially what it is when we're dealing with the 6th house is like, you may not realize that you, like, for example, you may not realize, like, you still make your bed because your mom beat your ass if you didn't, right? Like, it's a very hyper-specific example, and it's almost 1000% not true. But with that example in mind, you may very well today still make your bed, right? And you're not really doing it for the right reasons of, you know, wanting to have a nice bed or wanting to have, like, come home to, like, a hotel in some way, shape, or form. And having nice linens and, you know, saying the Ritz-Carlton with a northeastern heavy accent. But, you are essentially, like, paying homage and praying to your own people-pleasing natures from someone that basically abused you, you know? Like, so it's like, use that example to kind of like sift through your mind of what habits do you have that are from that space and what habits do you have that are from a good space. You feel what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, what patterns have been programmed into you by people that don't have interest in your highest good. Like, that's pretty much what Libra is doing right now, right? Of where it's like, they're getting reverse Virgo'd in a negative way of just maintaining balance for someone else's peace, when in reality it's their own journey to go through that peace and sift through that, right? So it's just like, you know, how are you living and why are you doing that? Do you know? Are you just doing these things for funsies? Like why are you doing this, right? Like, just because you've always done it? No, go back in your mind and figure it out, right? Like, this is one of the aspects of the solar map that I, like, preach a lot of the time, right? Because so many people are boring and stuck in trauma and they don't necessarily understand how to release it, right? So it's like, one of the things I do in my solar map coaching program is I talk to people. I have a little intake form and I create a 3-month sequence of custom guided meditations and journaling prompts for people to cycle through specific chakras correlated to what they wanted to work on or what their intake form suggested. And I basically give them a routine to basically do a daily meditation for 21 days. And then, whatchamacallit? Yeah. Well, it is boring. And I will explain why very shortly. So basically, it's like, you go through all of this stuff to basically release blockages within your body. And like, when you actually release it, you will feel like a muscle release and you will stand with a different posture because of, whatchamacallit, like, for somatic reasons. Somatic, so, I don't know if you're familiar with somatics, but somatic is the actual study of the neuromuscular connection to certain experiences of, like, the body keeps the score. That book has been heavily debunked, but the message behind it is pretty common through society, so I use it as an example, right? But basically, you go through this little chart, and when we talk about, like, the body keeps the score in somatics, the solar map and your unique chart often answers the specifics of, like, okay, your body keeps the score. Where does it keep the score, right? And it's just like, you meditate on it, you go in, you see the actual experience, and you go, damn, I don't want to do that. And then you move up and move on, right? Now, why I say trauma is boring is because so many people are stuck on it. No one really works on it very well. And even though they say they do, they don't. And they don't actually put any effort into releasing that experience from your body and processing it, right? Because why we experience pain or resistance or whatever you want to define in that situation is because, like, you know, you're not letting the experience flow, right? So being able to see it and go through it allows the experience to flow, right? And the thing about healing is, like, you want to come to a state of peace, right? And oftentimes when people seek healing or trauma release, they want to seek a space of, like, euphoria, right? And it's just like, no, that's not what happens after you release it. You move on into a space of peace, of where it's just like you kind of like forget it even happened, right? Or you look at it with no emotional response in your body, and you're just like, yeah, you know, that was a thing, kind of sucked. I learned something though, and you keep it pushing, right? Now, why I say it's boring is because when you get more advanced into this, you can go into specific past lives that are encoded into your genes and literally wake up with new skills and knowledge, right? Like, how do you think I speak so eloquently about astrology and the chakras and all that stuff, right? I've done this for numerous past lives, and I was planted the seed in my brain of understanding and creating the solar map, and then I did all this shit to understand what's going on and literally extract all this information for my, like, you know, career now. So, like, when I say it's boring, yeah, I will stand on that till the end of time. Not to disrespect anyone's pain or what they're holding on to, but simply because you've been holding on to it for decades and you literally put no effort into releasing it. So in my eyes, you're just kind of retarded. And, like, it's just like, you could release it, right? And yeah, you know, people don't have the tools, people don't have the proper understanding of, like, this and things to do it, but it's just like, you ain't really put no effort into it. You just want to sit in pain because you have no clue out and you haven't even looked, you know? So it's just like, yeah, I'm going to say it's boring. Yeah, I'm going to look at you like you're kind of stupid for sticking with it. But it's like, bruh, like, you can change it. Like, I am coming from a space of you have all the power in the world to change it, and you just choose not to. So yeah, you're boring and stupid in my eyes, and your life sucks for that reason. And then, you know, I'm going to say a lot of quotes that are being like, you know, the life you have is the life you chose, and so on and so forth. And that's going to cut deep, and you're going to be like, dang, do I really want this? And I hope you don't, you know? So yeah, it's like, there's a lot to the solar map, but this is something specific in regards to Libras in the 6th house and understanding, like, why, you know, the routines you want to work on and some mechanisms for you to understand it. That's the gist. But yeah, the body keeps the sword got debunked by a lot of, like, therapists, but, you know, it's like, what are academics good for? Regurgitating other ideas and, you know, sucking Professor Dick. That's what they're good for. But yeah. I don't know, I'm just gonna sit for a little bit. I kind of got off track. But yeah, if you guys want to understand the solar map and that study a little bit better, I have a playlist on my YouTube channel. It's called the Solar Map Playlist. It's really easy. And then I also have a free guide in my bio that explains all the gist of, like, basic applications of it, right? I haven't really created anything. I've only done one-on-one work when it comes to, like, you know, moving past trauma and, like, seeing, like, past lives to extract information. I mostly do it for myself. But if you're interested, you can always hit me up and I'm happy to come up with something for you. But yeah, I do a lot of, like, I do personalized custom guided meditations around it as well. They're pretty cool. I basically just, like, go, like, it's kind of, it's a little generic because it's like, you know, you can only do a repeatable custom guided meditation for someone in a certain way. But basically how I do it is, like, I go through your chart and I basically guide you down through the meditation of your chart, and then I guide you back up. And then it's like, on the way down, I tell you to look inward, and on the way up, I tell you to, like, look at the external transits in the sky that are going on. And then you can kind of, like, see, like, it's like a, you know, a lifetime tool for you to really understand that's funny. Hey. hey, you know, why not? There you go. But yeah, that's pretty much, I don't know, I do a lot of different things with that. But anyways, Scorpio risings. Sorry, I got sidetracked by Libra rising in the 6th house and people being stuck in trauma for dumb reasons. But yeah, so Scorpio rising. Which you gotta be a little more specific, Celeste, because there's a lot of things that come with the solar map. Oh, hello. Hey, Aaron. Thanks for coming. So I don't have a course yet teaching the solar map. I'm working on it. That's kind of like what all comes with the solar map. So you get the free guide. You get basically like a digital copy of this, but if you're an Alchemist Laboratory member, I'll mail it to you, a physical version. And then I have on YouTube, I have a generic custom guided meditation. I have a generic like just meditation that'll like make you flow through your body. It's kind of like the custom one that I suggested. That is like the custom one that I suggested. It's based off your own chart. Is its own separate thing that you gotta buy. And then the like sequence of custom guided meditations is my coaching program. Yeah. But yeah, I have like a lot of like just explaining the concept. I have a lot of stuff that you can like try. But if you want like custom things for you, that's something that you would have to work with me on. But anyways, Scorpio. Yeah, feel free to message me if you have more questions or something you want to work on. But anyways, Scorpio's in the 5th house. I'm hype on this personally. Scorpio's like the only one that's getting whatchamacallit. Yeah, reach out to me directly if you have more questions. I'm very responsive on email and Instagram. But Scorpio's just fun, right? And it's kind of ironic because it's like it's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's like when everyone else is in chaos, Scorpio just has fun, and when everyone else is having fun, Scorpio's in chaos. It's a weird flip flop. It's cool though because it's like a lot of the bullshit things. It's like, oh yeah, we're having fun, but Scorpio is dealing with creative blocks, ego-led romance release, and they are kind of dealing with the energy of radiance, of where it's like they're claiming joy that feels true to their soul, right? So when we say that, and Scorpio is dealing with this energy in the 5th house, it's like they're like, I don't necessarily want to say like they're releasing anyone. Like it may come to that, but it doesn't necessarily have to. But it's kind of like they're, yeah. I don't necessarily have to, but often will. It's not necessarily like it's not egoic in that regard. It's like egoic in the sense of like you felt like the only potential egoic release is dealing with romance, where it's like you were with somebody for status reasons or connection reasons. You weren't with them for them, right? So it's like that would specifically get released, but in terms of like other egoic aspects of it, or where you like romanticize a certain connection, you're releasing that, and you're releasing that in a way of just like you're not emotionally attached to it anymore. Like it's, hey, like we're hanging out, we're cool, but like I don't necessarily want this as deeply as I used to. And the retraction of that depth may be what holds, you know, what like inevitably like lets something dissolve, right? So it's kind of like, you know, Scorpio's just kind of going back to like doing them and following their own creative gifts and joys. And that's pretty much it, right? Like you're just gonna be having fun, and it's gonna be like I don't know, it's gonna be like like you like it's kind of like a graduation type of vibe. Does that make sense? Of where it's just like, I'm out of high school, I don't have to deal with this bullshit anymore, you know? And it's like before like life punches you in the face. It's gonna be like that, you know? But it's after you got a couple punches in the face, so vibes are up. But yeah, it's pretty much Scorpio. I don't know. It's like a educated release of nonsense. So it's just be chilling. All right, Saggy. Damn pen. Yeah, beans. Alrighty, Saggy in the old fourth housey. Yes. So it's like old home roots or family dynamic shifts of where it's just like, you know, you've kind of been away from like what you've been doing. You've been like bouncing around away from like certain philosophies that you like, and now you're kind of like coming back home and like, I don't know, it's like kind of like a Christmas reset for a lot of Sagittarius, or a holidays reset of where they go back to their home, they remember their roots, and it's like they kind of like realign with why they set off on the journey they did to begin with, if that makes any sense. So it's like you went back. It's kind of like, you know, you took one step back to take two steps forward. You know, it's like that type of thing of where you are out in a specific space, or you're out in a certain energy, and you're out in whatchamacallit, you know, you're out like doing your thing, but it's like you didn't realize that like you lost your fire, right? And it's like you're not moving with that like suave or that optimism or that like pure excitement, right? You're moving with, it's like muscle memory, right? Like you're just following a plan, and you're like, it's cool, but it's not that cool. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of like where we're at with that. So it's like an opportunity, but it's not necessarily a, you know, it's not a potentiality. You feel me? Like it's not like, I don't know. It's like you're a shell of yourself in some way, shape, or form, and you got to go back to the basics to remind yourself of like what it is, right? So it's cutting off a certain like emotional connection temporarily to give you a pause to remind you why you did it, because you moved away from that space. It's pretty cut and dry, but it's like necessary. Anyways, slappy cappy. You ready, Beans? Here's your added flavor to your reading of getting back to it. Come on, pen. Yeah, bullshit. What time is Cappy? Cappy's right now. Just trying to get a pen that fucking works. Alright, whatever, I'll know. Oh, cool. Cappy is an hour and 17 minutes. Thanks for keeping everybody on board. I appreciate it. Yeah. So Capricorn's dealing with the third house, so it's releasing outdated narratives, reframing your voice. Whatchamacallit? And it's kind of like the messenger, so it's like your words must align with moral and truth. So basically, like, how I could explain this is like Capricorns are moving around typecasting people in some way, shape, or form. And we'll use politicals for an example because it's the most triggering and the most entertaining. But like Capricorns are kind of like going around oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but you know, toxicity doesn't lead to growth. But with that being said, it's kind of like Capricorns are like walking around and being like, oh, you're a blue-haired liberal, or oh, you're you know, a Trump supporter, and you're like, you know, all you care about is money and lying to people, you know? So it's kind of like whatchamacallit? It's kind of like I don't know. It's like Capricorn's like typecasting people and neglecting like the depth of like what each soul has to offer, right? So essentially, it's like Capricorns need to release that like typecasting, because it's like, you know, it's like they're trying to do what Gemini does, and it's just like, no, you can't do that, right? You have to like, if you're going to typecast someone, you can typecast that they're a human being with like needs and morals and emotional depth like everyone else, you know? So it's like you can't just like categorize people by, you know, for the example purpose, political beliefs. And you need to just kind of like release that, right? And if you're, I don't know, you kind of use it as a metric of like, if you're doing that and you're like constantly arguing with like a narrative in your own head, you need to release that, because it's like Capricorn, like, are you really going to let somebody that pissed you off take up all your mental energy for something that like you would want to build, no, you don't want to do that, right? Like, you're letting everybody else take up your mental energy, and you're not necessarily creating what you need to create, you know? So it's like, it's like, hey man, like, what do you want to, how do you want to handle that? What do you want to do? You know, it's not necessarily the opportunity of a lifetime, but it's like, you don't realize how much mental energy you're spending. And once you do like an audit of what you're spending all your mind on and all your effort on, it's kind of like, you know, well, you probably wouldn't do that anymore, right? So just like looking at it for a pure sake of efficiency and understanding that you just let it go, you know? So that's pretty much Capricorn. Should clarify some things, and they should quit bullshitting. Aquarius. Aquarius in the second house. Yeah. So Aquarius is dealing with a lot of money and self-worth stories dissolving. They're understanding the depth of value of where it's like anchoring themselves into their true worth beyond material attachments. Which what that means is, essentially what that means is they like, they're in a space where they like this all comes from Pluto, so it's just like Aquarius is being all like, hey man, like this is cool, but no, you know what I'm saying, of where it's like they're in a cool space, they're making things happen, but they kind of feel like they're lacking because everybody's shifting into like what they naturally do, and they're not they just basically put no work into like improving their own skills because they haven't had to till Pluto showed up, right? So they're kind of feeling a little down on themselves. It's not necessarily, you know, they're not recognizing that like they're the best at what everybody is moving into their arena of, and they kind of gotta like recognize their true worth and improve their natural skills instead of just being like just farting around, just being like, oh, you know, well everybody's doing it now, so it's not cool anymore. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much that's it. You know, like they just got to be like, hey, just because everybody else is on our wave doesn't mean we got to quit. That's it. Now moving on to the old Pisces. They are dealing with a lot of identity and self-image situations. So little Pisces is essentially dealing with a self-image karmically reset. And they're kind of like pulling like some mirror tricks out of their ass where they're releasing old masks and they're stepping into their soul's truth. So Pisces is essentially like it's cool, but it's just like they're not necessarily in the space of whatchamacallit. They're not necessarily in the space of whatchamacallit, like they're not necessarily like doing their thing, you know what I'm saying? Of where it's like they're trying to be attached to the collective. They're trying to be in a space of I don't know, it's kind of like a hard thing to say, where it's like they don't realize how much they attach onto the emotional, they don't realize like how empathetic they are and how much it's like distracted them from themselves, right? So it's like the universe is kind of like putting a pause on that empathy, or like a little like slap on the wrist to tell them to, hey, chill out, remember you be you, you know? So it's kind of like that depth of like realigning with themselves and recognizing the karmic reset of their self-image so they can move up and move on. But yeah, I don't know, that's pretty much it for Pisces. Does anybody have any questions or like just general questions about the eclipse? It's like good for the most part. I don't know, it's like lighthearted but not. It's kind of weird to encapsulate. What are you laughing at? But yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'll catch you later. I'm gonna be doing a Uranus retrograde live either like tomorrow or the next day, and then I will probably do another like all sign oracle card reading type of deal. Bye.